Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is proclamation news and gatherings. It is the prodigious, the prominent Professor Johnson. I come etiquette and style and pragmatic with sense. Absolute populism. I used to talk about politics, environmentalism, industrialisation, pollution, fly tipping, global warming. But today, we're talking about criminology, the crime brew, offenders, reoffenders, people causing havoc, the juveniles throughout the whole of the UK. But at the moment, I'm in the Essex constituency, talking about what the police get themselves involved in, day out. The criminal courts, the legislators inside the judiciary of the criminal law, what they get themselves involved in, day out. They're some of the dirtiest, most juvenile creatures throughout humanity. They deal with day in, day out. The metropolitan lunatic asylums, racketeering acts, arson, theft, burglary, rape, knife crime, gang crime, trafficking drugs, narcotics, idiotic chaos behaviour, absolute lunatism. Lunatism, we're going to call it. Lunatism. It's a new word. My crime baru. Anyway, any of you youngsters think about offending or re-offending, you never think past your nose. You think you do something, get away with it. Your time will, get away with it once, you do it again. You think you get away with it again. Sooner or later, you're going to get caught. Sooner or later, you're going to get caught. If you find yourself in jeopardy in your lifestyle, make that change. Pick yourself up, move on, make that change. Anyway, I've got a crime bureau. I've got a crime bureau sheet that I've written myself in pen and ink. Rape and sexual offences. Rape carries a maximum penalty of life imprisonment. Rape is a serious specified offence to which dangerous offender provisions apply. Schedule 15 Criminal Justice Act 2003. Starting point: single offence of rape by a single offender, 5 years custody. Victim 16 or over, 8 years custody. Victim 13 or over, but under 16. 10 years custody. Victim under 13. Rape accompanied by aggravated factor, 8 years custody. Victim age 13 or over, but under 16. 13 years custody. Victim under 13 years. Repeated rape of the same victim by a single offender of raping involving multiple victims, 15-year custody. It's horrific, isn't it? Now we can look at arson. Anyone thinking about doing arson? Anything criminal activity? You need to preach this to your youth of today, your nieces, your nephews, your cousins, whatever. Anyone that's in their life in jeopardy feel like, the only way is crime. It happens this way. It depends on, what society you live amongst, where your children are, the social circle they hang about with. They live in that dead end triangle of no hope and no luck. Effective from the 4th of August 2008. Triable either way. Maximum when tried summary. Level 5 fine and or 6 months. Maximum when tried on indictment life. Where offence committed in domestic context. Refer to overcharging principles, domestic abuse. Offence seriousness. Culpability and harm. Identity, the appropriate starting point. Starting point based on first time offender, pleading not guilty. Starting offender examples of major activity. Damage by fire. So I'm not even going into that anyway. What is the sentence for manslaughter in the UK and how many years could you face in prison? If you've been accused of manslaughter, the consequences under UK law are severe, ranging from a prison sentence, typically ranging between 2 to 10 years. A suspended term of imprisonment. The sentence can be suspended for up to 2 years, and the offence is given a charge and comply with up to 12 requirements set by the court. Community service. The sentence will depend on the specific circumstances of the offence. Unlike murder, there is no mandatory sentence for the criminal offence of manslaughter. Sentencing is at the judge's discretion, and where provocation was an issue in the offence within the certain guidelines prescribed by Sentencing Guidelines Council. I'm going to give you a quick run through. I'm not going to go from all my pages. I've read a lot of pages just for my own benefit if I want to become a magistrate. Maximum sentence for burglary. Offences under Section 1 and 9 of the Theft Act are punishable either on a summary conviction or on indictment. The maximum sentence in the magistrate's court is 6 months imprisonment. In the Crown Court, the maximum sentence is 7 years custody for theft and 10 years for burglary in a building other than a dwelling. GBH, grievous bodily harm, either Section 18, which carries life imprisonment, with intent to do serious harm, or Section 20, which has a maximum of 5 years. Assault, occasioning actual bodily harm, ABH, again a maximum of 5 years. Common assault or assault by beating, maximum of 6 months. Section 18 GBH with intent. This is the most serious of the assaults under the offences against a person under Act and is an offence that can only be tried in the Crown Court. There are 2 offences created by the section: inflicting grievous bodily harm with intent in wounding with intent. To become a magistrate, you need to know these things, don't you? Absolutely. GBH means really serious harm. For harm to amount to a wound. The continuity of skin must be broken. The biggest difference between GBH under this section and GBH under the Section 20 is a question of intent for the offence. The prosecution must establish that the defendant intended that would or cause serious bodily harm. Section 20 GBH, as explained above, this offence is the same as the Section 18 offence, however, without the requirement of intent. The offence is sometimes referred to as wounding, and offences can be committed recklessly. Section 47 ABH. It must be an assault or battery, see below, which causes some bodily harm. The injury does not need to be permanent, but must be more than merely transient or trifling cuts, bruises, or even physiological injury, which amounts to a reasonable psychiatric illness, can be classed as bodily harm. Anyway, moving on. We look at some more crime throughout Essex. Give you a bit of an insight. Your youth for today, you need to influence of the consequences they could be facing. Absolutely. Essex crime. Tesco and Halifax cash point significantly damaged after explosion in 2 attempted thefts. 4 men have been arrested in connection with the incidents. Cash points in Essex have been significantly damaged after an explosion occurred during a theft attempt. An ATM in Witham, Essex was significantly damaged by an explosion on March 22nd, and another was also targeted in London, Essex, after an attempt to access the machine using an explosive, which failed. No cash was taken during either the attempted thefts. The attempted cash point theft in the Halifax branch on the Newlands, Witham, saw a large police cordon after the ATM was ripped out of the wall in the early hours of the morning. Weeks later, on April 11th, another targeted theft attempt occurred at Tesco store in London, Essex. 4 men have since been arrested in connection with the incidents. During the early hours of this morning, April 29th, a 29-year-old man from Colchester, a 33-year-old man from Romford, and a 42-year-old man from Woodford Green were arrested on suspicion of burglary. Theft. A 36-year-old man from Ilford was later arrested on suspicion of the same offences. The men remain in custody for question. The Numbers and items have been seized from addresses in Colchester, Montford and Woodford Green, which are forming part of Essex Police investigation. Hey, imagine that being burgled. Absolute juvenile scumbag activity. Nothing worse than a thief. A spokesperson at Essex Police said 4 men have been arrested in connection with our investigation into attempted thefts from ATMs. Officers from a serious and organised crime unit are investigating accident incidents who took place in Witham and in London. 4 men have now been arrested as part of the operation. Bad, isn't it? It's horrific. Absolutely horrific. Essex girl, 6 with cerebral palsy, has to travel abroad for treatment, costing £7,000 per trip. Each trip for treatment cost the family £7,000. A young girl from Essex with cerebral palsy has been travelling to Canada for treatment, which cost her family £7,000 per trip. Myla Cole, 6 from Braintree, has cerebral palsy, and due to the complexity of her condition, she needs intensive therapies in order to develop her physical skills. However, the NHS doesn't offer all of the therapies Myla needs. Her family claims, and so her parents have been taking her to America for private therapy treatments since she was 3. Kerry Dowsey, her mum, has been taking her to therapy since Myla was a baby. Kerry said Myla was diagnosed at around 17 to 18 months with cerebral palsy. She said she had an MRI when she was born, so we were aware from the start that we were potentially going to have some challenges to face. Kerry added, we already had an idea of her diagnosis before she was diagnosed, and once she got to 7 or 8 months, we realised she wasn't sitting up or reaching out any milestones, so we started looking for private therapies. And when Myla was 2, her family began fundraising to try and cover the cost of the therapies. Kerry said, we started fundraising for some more therapies outside the country because the NHS unfortunately can't provide everything that they need. And we felt that Myla needed more to be able to progress. It was a year later when Myla and her family left England for her therapy, travelling to Boston, United States in June 2019. While she was there, Myla received intensive therapy for 4 hours every day for 3 weeks, Kerry said. Myla was amazing. But this therapy, whilst having an incredible impact on Myla's development, is incredibly expensive. Toby Haycock, who's fundraising for Myla, said that these international trips can cost $7,000 each time, which is simply unsustainable for many. And in March 2020, COVID hit the world and Myla's therapies were cancelled, risking her losing much of the progress she's been making. However, this was when Kerry Began contacted people online and formed a community with other parents, as well as doing online therapy sessions and helping Myla herself. And later on in 2020, Myla began pushing herself up into seated position herself, which was an incredible milestone for her and to be achieving. Kerry said since then, Myla started crawling around exploring the environment. The last couple of years have just been mind-blowing, to be honest, but it's through fundraising that the therapies are possible. Kerry acknowledged Miss Myla's therapy. The cost is just extortionate, she said. Like, we couldn't, even if you had a very good wage, you couldn't cover it and live on top of it as well. It's just too expensive. Despite the amount of therapy Myla has to do every day, she's an incredibly happy and bubbly little girl. Myla stands in a frame for a couple of hours a day, as well as having to do leg stretches for up to an hour. She's also in a walker for another hour. It's not the life of a regular 6-year-old. Ladies and gents, this proclamation news and Gavin's. It's been lovely to have you all on board. I'm going to cut that show short. I've got things to do. People to see. I just want to say God bless, one love, take care, speak soon.